Hello everybody and welcome back to Pravus Gaming and more Democracy 3 Presidential Suite, playing as Russia, attempting to restore the Soviet Union. And we're going into our third term because last video we won an election, which is really easy to do when no one's allowed to vote for anybody else, but I digress. Don't pay any attention to that, the important thing is we are the legitimate democratically elected leader of Russia. And we're going on into our third term, and this is the time when I think we're going to have a bit more flexibility, because we've spent a lot of effort, lots of effort recently, trying to improve things like our productivity, trying to improve our GDP, been trying to improve our health, we've been trying to improve our education, and it's been going pretty darn well. Now that Russia is more or less in a more stable, at least, environment, I think now is the time that we are going to get to start moving more and more towards proper communism slash not really communism, kind of a socialism. A lot of people debate whether or not USSR was actually communist, or whether it was actually socialist, or whether it was something kind of else entirely. Kind of depends a lot on your definitions of the terms, but we're going to try moving more and more toward that. We're going to try to move toward painting the nation red, so to speak. Painting the roses red. Yes, red is our favorite color. One more thing to notice, though, was he actually did get the Patriot population up to 100, so yeah, so far in Russia, it seems like everyone's become incredibly patriotic, very nationalistic, kind of fun. All right, so what should we start with? Well, how's the black market doing? Actually, the black market is about to go away. The fraud agency does seem to be doing its job. That's excellent, because that's going to save me 8 billion rubles plus improve my tax income by a very minor amount, given the fact that they're only times 0.99, which I'm losing 1% income tax, basically. But, you know, the 8 billion at the very least is going to be worth a lot. What about the water shortage? That's also about to go away, thank God. So that means we actually don't need to continue investing so much in the Climate Change Adaptation Fund, which is good because it's spending 20 billion frickin' rubles per quarter right now for a prediction system. And it's actually got a long way to go. We can continue reducing the water shortage by another 10%, but if we've already crossed the stop trigger, who really cares? The question to me is, do we want to go to a warning system, or do we want to just go to an alert system, which will save me a fair bit of money? I mean, we could save ourselves about 13 billion. Although if we just canceled it outright, which has the same effect on the water shortage, we could save 20 billion straight up. Here's the only downside of this. If we were to get rid of this, we're looking at probably increasing the water shortage again by another 4% or so, plus whatever else happens as the GDP continues to go up. I mean, once we cross the stop trigger, that helps, but this is kind of narrow, the start and the stop triggers here. I don't know what the exact unit measurement is between these squares. I feel like it's either 4 or 5%. So what this tells me is we have probably between 8 to 10% of leeway, and then the water shortage comes right back. So it may be worth spending some money, a fair bit of money, just to guarantee that we never get the water shortage again. We don't need to spend this much, but we could reduce it down to only a warning system, and this will continue going down to minus 7%. So I'm pretty much guaranteeing that the water shortage never becomes an issue in this country again if I just go down to a warning system, which I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that. It's a little bit of a coward's way out, but between getting rid of the black market and saving a lot of money on that, I'm expecting my surplus to kind of jump up pretty nicely, and that'll be great. So, besides all this, though, what else is a problem for the GDP? Well, productivity is still not as good as it could be. Honestly, at this point, I would think that once we've kind of crossed over this halfway mark, I think that the productivity should be giving us a bonus to the GDP, personally. But no, if you're not maxed out, then it's hindering your GDP. Kind of sucks, but alright, fine, why not? Not much we can do about that right now. Let's see, global economy is actually kind of on the upswing, and the better the global economy does, the better we'll be doing, which is great. Actually, for the last year and a quarter, we've been beating the global economy. We have had a relatively better GDP than the average of the world, so that means we're pretty much on the right track, and that makes me feel pretty good about myself. The only thing that matters really then is traffic congestion, which has not moved at all. I mean, it's partly because of these civil rights protests. They're increasing it by 30%. It will take so much to reduce this. I mean, we can try anyway, though, at the very least, try and reduce traffic congestion, road accidents, and stuff like that. But the best thing to do is to, well, we're not going to ever get rid of civil rights protests, let's be honest. Car usage, then. We could try to reduce this a bit more, and that's certainly an option. If we want to reduce car usage, then there's a few things we could do. We could start by actually making it more costly to operate a car in the first place. So, for example, car emission limits. That's something we could do for relatively cheap. And let's see. It actually reduces air pollution straight up, which is pretty nice. 32%. I like that. CO2 emissions goes down, and car usage goes down by only 2.4%. That doesn't feel like a lot. Whatever. Anyway, it does go down. So by imposing more rules and making cars more difficult to meet governmental standards and stuff like that, you're going to overall reduce car usage, which is okay. So this is certainly one way to try and tackle things like that. Banning low MPG cars and stuff like we already did, that would help as well. Alternative options would be to invest a bit more in buses or railroads. You can see here, rail usage going up reduces car usage and bus usage. Increasing bus usage reduces car usage and rail usage. And using cars reduces... well, nothing, actually. I kind of thought that car usage tied into bus and rail usage that way as well, but apparently not. Huh, that's interesting. What is this? Speed cameras income reduces... huh. High car usage is overwhelming our speed cameras so that we can't pull everybody over and it's costing us more than we're getting? No, that doesn't make sense. I wonder if that means that it's reducing motorist income. Well, anyway. Point is, though, we could invest a bit more in railways and buses, and we haven't done any bus subsidies or anything like that. Free bus passes, of course, would certainly do it. A national monorail system would be one option, but it's kind of expensive. What if we did something simple like bus lanes? That's relatively cheap, and it actually seems to imply that it will reduce congestion directly, which could be pretty good. It might actually help reduce the road accidents, too, which is good. So let's go ahead and pass that sucker. Commuters like this, bus usage does go up a pretty substantial amount. Now, 20% more bus usage doesn't translate into 20% less car usage. I think it's somewhere around like 5 to 8%, but even so, it's not inconsequential. And road accidents does go down directly by 8%. The only downside of this is the motorists are really unhappy about this, I guess because they're so envious that buses have their own separate lanes. You know, personally, I would think, hey, having a separate lane for buses means the big, slow piece of machinery isn't getting in my way. I don't know. I mean, I would take it. I'd run with it. I guess they just don't like their tax dollars going to that instead of a free lane, like a diamond lane. Whatever. Point is, we're going to go ahead and pass that and try to reduce traffic congestion if we can. Although, to be honest, I feel like it's kind of a fruitless cause, but we'll keep poking at it. We'll keep poking at it gradually. Maybe we can use that to help increase the GDP. But let's see. Oh, we have an event that we forgot about. Here we go. Ban smokeless tobacco. Okay. Now, in my last campaign as Libertarian Sweden, I actually misread this, and some people pointed this out in the comments section. I was looking at this as tobacco-less smoke instead. I was thinking of, like, e-cigarettes. You know, you have nicotine and basically water vapor, but you kind of take the tobacco out of it. No, I actually had that completely flipped around. No, smokeless tobacco, we're talking things like chewing tobacco. It's still tobacco, you just don't smoke it, you don't produce smoke. That's the idea behind it. So, chewing tobacco, not e-cigs. Oops, my bad. But we'll go ahead and read this correctly this time. Some of our citizens use smokeless tobacco products. Tobacco companies promote them as a safe and convenient alternative to smoking, but medical experts warn that there are still health risks. Yeah, like oral cancer. They are also concerned that these products have a lower threshold of usage than cigarettes, meaning that they are easier to get into, rather than, you know, kind of abrasive smoke. We could allow it. We could get rid of the fire risk and the productivity loss from smoking breaks at work, although the alternative is for employers just to stop giving out frickin' smoking breaks. Seriously, as somebody who helped work in management in a kind of fast food stuff when I was in high school, it is incredibly frustrating when you have employees that, like, every, 30 minutes to an hour are like, hey, I need to take a smoke break. It's like, no, you don't. Stay here and do your frickin' job. We're paying you. It's so annoying to me. But okay. We can also decrease asthma considerably. Now, that sounds pretty good. Alternatively, we could ban them. Banning cigarettes might not be politically viable, but this is a step towards less tobacco use. Smokeless tobacco might be less dangerous, but also has a lower threshold for consumption. By the way, we have banned many food additives which are far less dangerous than these tobacco products. Between the two of these, maybe I go for allowing smokeless tobacco here. I kind of like the idea of improving our productivity and also directly decreasing asthma because we're not using smoke. That said, though, how much does it actually do? Well, it does reduce asthma by about 10%. That's certainly useful, but, yeah, it does increase our tobacco usage by 5%. Okay. So that's the thing. So it is a little bit of a diminishing return there. It's not really a full 10%. If tobacco usage goes up, it's going to be less than that, really. What we really want to do is reduce tobacco usage, and perhaps one of the best ways to do that is to increase taxes. Also education, but I don't know how much higher we can go on that. Apparently the fact that the economy is doing okay and the poor have money is enough to get them to go buy cigarettes. The poor are like, hey, I've got an extra $30 a week in my paycheck. I'm going to get more cigarettes. Yeah, that's a good use of your money when you're poor. Well done. Jeez. The same sort of thing happens with alcohol consumption, by the way. Whoops, I think I clicked off by accident. There we go. Hope that didn't ruin the recording too much. Alcohol consumption. You can see here that as GDP goes up, people feel more inclined to buy alcohol because they got more money. And actually, poor earnings does not tie into this. It's poverty. If you eliminate poverty... Okay, so it basically is still poor earnings. It's just kind of got a roundabout way of saying it. If you get rid of poverty so that the poorest among us have more money, they will then spend that money on alcohol. I think that's basically what it's trying to say. Whatever. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of that, but what really can you do? Let's move on into the next turn. Hopefully we don't get assassinated. Capitalist plot. No! Oh, God. This is not what I wanted to see. Brain drain. It happened, everybody. My worst fears. My worst nightmare. They have been confirmed. Now, that said, we do see that the black market is gone and the water shortage is also gone, which means we are saving a lot of money. 45 billion surplus per quarter. That sounds pretty good, except we're about to lose pretty much all of it because of the brain drain. Media backlash. What do you mean, media backlash? Are you telling me that I don't own the media yet? I need to get on that. Absolutely. Oh, brain drain. Okay. What's driving this? Let's see. Taxes, primarily. Border controls is helping to reduce it, but it has been steadily going up, apparently. I knew that when the Luddite riots fired, this was going to be a risk. The Luddite riots are contributing about 13% to this right now. This was a risk that we ran, absolutely. So I think that this has been steadily going up because our industrial automation has been steadily going up, which increases the Luddite riots, which has been leading to the brain drain, and now we are finally here. Bugger, that sucks. That sucks a lot. Okay, well, we have a few options available to us right now, then. Pretty much the only effective way to get rid of this is to get rid of the income tax, or reduce it a lot. Because right now this brain drain is reducing our GDP by 9.3% and our productivity by 8%, which in turn reduces the GDP a bit more. So we're probably looking at about a 12% GDP reduction right off the get-go, and presumably this is going to continue getting worse if we just let it go. So we have to get it below the stop trigger. The problem is once you've crossed the start trigger, it is very difficult to get it below the stop trigger. Very difficult. We're going to have to reduce the income tax to like almost literally nothing. Almost literally nothing. We'd be sacrificing 120 billion frickin' rubles per quarter. And on top of that, it wouldn't even happen overnight. There's inertia associated with this. So if you reduce it down to 1%, we're talking about sacrificing about 120 billion rubles per quarter for the next, I don't know, year. That sucks. There are other ways to get rid of this, don't get me wrong. Reducing taxes, like let's say reduce the automation tax, reduce the luxury goods tax, maybe reduce the income tax a little bit. And then you could pass something like tax shelters, which does directly reduce the brain drain, but it also really, really upsets the socialists and greatly reduces equality. A lot. So obviously I'd rather not do that, but that may be the cheapest way to do it, just, you know, doesn't really fit the theme of this playthrough. I'm not going to put up frickin' tax shelters to help the bourgeois, are you kidding me? There is a trick that I know of with this, to make it go a little bit faster. What I found most of the time when I have this sort of event, is I can reduce the income tax, but it takes like 1, maybe 2 turns before it finally starts to go down and that inertia kicks in. So we're really looking at about 1.5 to 2 years before we actually see this go away if I reduce my income tax considerably. However, one little trick I found is if you cancel the policy instead of reducing it, it does immediately start reducing instead, which could be pretty good. Now, granted, it cost me it's not even that much different as far as political capital costs, and frankly, if we reduce this down to 1% to try and get this to go away as fast as possible, we're losing that 120 billion rubles per quarter anyway. So really, this is going to cost me a lot of political capital, but by reducing the income tax, we might see our GDP suddenly skyrocket from the greatly increased productivity. I mean, it could work. Higher earnings, too. I'm looking at basically almost 3 to 4 turns of no income tax. This is going to cost me so much money. Hundreds of billions of rubles. Oh my god. But it might be the fastest way to deal with this, because I really want this gone quickly so I can focus on it furthering my socialist agenda. Communist agenda, whatever. Frickin' USSR, whatever it is. It's a bit of a gambit, but I think this has worked for me well in the past. I'm curious if it's going to work now. Let's cancel it. It feels so bad. And hopefully, by the beginning of next video, I'll be able to bring it back and start getting some more money. Because instantly we go down to a minus 80 billion rubles. Our debt's going to go up to like 750 to 800,000 rubles by the time we fix this problem. But immediately, we should start seeing the brain drain go down very quickly. It can't possibly go away any faster. Then we can reintroduce the income tax at, let's say, about, I don't know, 45% or something like that to try and prevent it from ever coming back. That's going to be the idea anyway, and in the meantime, it is expensive as heck. But okay. Okay. What are some other things we want to do? Well, we do want to continue keeping our eyes on the prize. We do want to continue moving toward more and more socialistic things. We want to increase our nationalism. We do want to continue working on improving our health and education as well. And also, one thing I really do need to do, if I want to try to get rid of foreign subversion and also prevent cyber warfare from ever becoming a thing, we kind of need to improve our foreign relations, which have been spotty at best. One thing we could do, which is going to cost some money, but, you know, we're going to go bankrupt anyway, so who cares, right? We could pass sports venues. And if we wanted to do this and try to build, like, let's say an Olympic park, this improves our foreign relations by over 10%, and health goes up by 5%, in exchange for 3.8 billion rubles per quarter. Also, really makes patriots happy, and considering literally the entire population is patriot, that could work out pretty nicely for me, so yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. But we do need to keep making more and more progress moving toward the USSR. What are some other things we could do? We can't do planned economy right now, and to be honest, I don't think planned economy is what we want, not yet. This is something we're probably going to do closer to the end of the campaign. It just doesn't give me the benefits I'm looking for, but obviously for thematic reasons we have to. We could actually change state religion. That could be a thing. Because that does actually fit historically with the USSR. The relationship between church and state is usually regulated by constitution. One of the earlier things that happened in the USSR is effectively the dismantling between the Orthodox Church, which was very prominent during the autocratic state of Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution and the takeover of Lenin, later in the establishment of the USSR. So removing the Orthodox Church was historically a big part of this and actually moving toward a form of state atheism. Atheism was propagated in schools and religion was openly mocked and ridiculed. Because after all, don't forget kind of Marxist belief of religion is the opiate of the masses. That was sort of the idea. So if we wanted to be more historically accurate, then yeah, we could actually just ban all faith entirely, but that greatly reduces our foreign relations. What if instead we did just go to some basic state atheism? That actually would be appropriate for a USSR playthrough, and it doesn't actually cost me anything. That's interesting though, it actually would cost me something if I did want to affirm a theocratic state, or a more religious state. Interesting. Pluralism, privileged state religion, theocratic state, minority mission banned, minority faiths banned. Huh. Interesting. And it looks like no matter what you do, if you're not being kind of secular and plural here, just kind of letting people do what they want to do, it reduces foreign relations the more extreme you go. That is interesting. I don't know, I say just for the sake of theme, let's just keep pushing more and more towards the proper USSR and reduce things down to state atheism. That sounds appropriate. And then I guess we go ahead and move on into the next turn. Capitalist plot. Sexism is now at an end. That's actually not necessarily the most beneficial thing for me. I mean, it sounds great and all, right? But actually, increased sexism was reducing liberalism membership, technically. And considering liberalism membership is at 88%, my god, you want to explain that one to me? What? Alright. Well, it's the education, it's the internet, and it's also the frickin' surveillance scandals. They're just killing me. They stack. They frickin' stack. Why do they stack? That alone is increasing their... by like 33%, man. It's too much. Too much. Oh, whatever. We'll crush them eventually, right? Probably. Anyway. What was this? Child abuse? Ah, right. Spanking. No. The state shall be your parents now? We will not allow you to spank your children. Now, see, children, how we protect you from your abusive parents? That's why you should rebel against your parents, because they're stuck in an old way of life and supporting the bourgeois, and you should actually come and join our pioneer youth movement. That's what you should be doing. Right down here, see? We're enrolling all the time, in all settlements. Come and join the Communist Party, kids. Oh boy. Alright, so maybe wondering why I'm stacking up 49 political capital. Well, that's because there is one more policy I really do want to pass in this particular video. What is one of the first things that should happen when socialists actually fully take over? Whether that be the nationalist socialists of, let's say, Nazi Germany. I believe this also happened in the USSR historically. What is one of the first things that happens? That's right, the population gets disarmed and guns are banned. And that is what we are going to do today. Let's see, we could go to licensing if we wanted to, or we could just have strict controls, but, I mean, well, ultimately I would say it's probably fine where it is right now. For the sake of the playthrough, total ban probably makes the most sense. It also reduces liberalism membership by a couple percentage points, and greatly reduces violent crime. Which is interesting because I can think of a few people who would contend with that and say, hey, just because, you know, you get rid of guns doesn't mean violent crime goes down. Gun crime might go down, but violent crime may not go down. And in fact, some people would point to studies that suggest that violent crime goes down the more gun ownership there is, but of course that's very contentious, and some people think that those figures are completely bollocks, and some people think that they're absolutely religiously true, so I have no idea, really. But either way, point is, it's kind of, the game's kind of picked its side here. We could reduce violent crime substantially, we could reduce liberalism membership. The fact that we're reducing military strength kind of sucks, but even so, I think we're going to go ahead and do this. We are going to ban gun ownership in Russia, which I did see in the comments in the last video was kind of agreed that that is going to have to be a prerequisite. One of the first things that we do. So we've done it. Good. Making progress, everybody. I know I'm going to keep trying to solve a lot of these problems, but as we're going, you know, hey, I am trying to continue pushing toward the USSR. I haven't lost sight of the prize. Okay, look here. See, the income tax is immediately reducing the brain drain. If I had done this normally, I'm pretty sure we would have stayed about the same first, and then it would have gradually started going down. We're making it go down a lot faster by getting rid of the income tax entirely, canceling it, as opposed to reducing it down to minimum. I don't know why that's the case. It's just something that I have observed, for whatever reason. But okay, the problem is we now have a 77 billion ruble deficit. Ow. Ow, my heart. It hurts so bad. But productivity goes way the heck up. Let's move on to the last turn. Credit rating downgraded. Oh, you don't say. I kind of think I should have expected that one. Health is going way up though. That's pretty nice. Yeah. It's not even showing me what my actual income is this turn right now for some reason. Doesn't it usually say here? That's weird. All right, well, deficit is still at 77 billion. All right. So GDP is going down. But productivity is doing pretty well. How's the brain drain? Still going down. Look how close we are to that stop trigger already. Ooh, we actually might be able to restart the income tax next turn. That'd be great. We're very, very close. Very, very close. Okay. Okay, there is hope. Granted, we just added on a few hundred billion rubles to the debt, but there is hope. We'll get there eventually, I swear to God. You know one thing we could do that's really cheap that I'd like to do since we have the excess political capital is actually pass the rare earth metal mining right now. Now, it could cost me a lot of money. It could cost up to 20 billion rubles per quarter, and it very much upsets the environmentalists, but there are some pretty nice benefits to get here. A little bit of technology, but primarily a lot of productivity. Now, personally, I think every playthrough should have at least some level of the rare earth metal mining. It's just so good, but you don't have to go maxed out to get the full benefit of 15%. I mean, for the full benefit, yes, but a pretty substantial benefit. Surprisingly, if we just went down to the minimum, we still could get 10% of that. The question is, do you want to spend 20 billion for an extra 5% productivity, or are you happy with spending only 700 million for 10% productivity? And I think that no matter what you do, this is always going to be best. I mean, you could go higher if you really want to, if you really don't care about the environmentalists and you really have a lot of money, but at the very minimum, this just seems like a no-brainer to me. So let's go ahead and pass that. That's going to kind of reaffirm our productivity. It should get actually surprisingly close to maxed out until we pass, you know, the income tax again, but, you know, that's just sort of a thing. Luddite riots. You know what? If you're continuing to move toward the brain drain, maybe we need to be reducing you as well. I'm kind of regretting even having any robotics research grants at all. And actually, you know what? There is one more thing to consider here. I do know that there is another event that's added in here, a robot uprising that can happen if your industrial automation and technology gets too high. And don't forget, we do have things like an AI administration, which I imagine would be increasing that as well. Robot research grants, in my experience, are a huge contributor to that. I mean, having, like, any at all, like, really increases it by a ton. If it reduces down to 0, yeah, it upsets trade unionists and stuff like that. But we could possibly prevent that event from ever firing, and to be honest, I don't need more industrial automation. Productivity's doing pretty well right now, and we want to try and reduce the Luddite riots because they are contributing to the brain drain. So let's go ahead and reduce this down to minimum. I would cancel it, but it costs 7 points instead of 3. And while I hate to upset trade unionists, I'd rather save a little bit of political capital for next turn, because what I'm going to do, probably, is pass the income tax, which I know costs 43 political capital to introduce. So that is a lot, and we only generate, let's say, 35 per turn. So I need to save the rest of these points for the next video, and then we will have to repass the income tax as soon as this is gone. Thank you all for watching. This is a bit of a rocky episode, but we're starting to make progress. Alright, we've introduced state atheism, and we've taken away all the guns. Now we need to start banning things like private ownership of, let's say, education and healthcare and stuff like that. We need to start pushing out more propaganda, work toward that planned economy, and so on and so forth. I have a few ideas. We'll continue working on those in the rest of this series. Stay tuned if you want to see more. Be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.